Hello everybody, it's Warhammer here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Estalian Tomb playing as the forces of the Lizardmen against the forces of the Greenskins. And for this matchup, we're not going with the most serious of builds, though perhaps a bit of a memey and perhaps even overpowered build, because, well, we're spamming some single entities. And this entire build is oriented at terror bombing and fear routing enemies. Maybe not the best idea given the fact that recently Greenskins got the Black Orc Big Boss who gives him psychology, but I figured, you know what, let's have a little fun anyway and see what happens. So for the anchor in this build, it is Nakai the Wanderer, the stout Kroxigor Ancient who is, well, quite frankly, severely overpriced, but I really wanted him specifically for the Miasma of Despair, which he has over here. He gives -8 leadership and AoE, also reduces enemy speed and vigor, which is nice in some of those key engagements to be able to prevent your opponent from escaping, weaken them a little bit. Vigor does have some significant stat buffs, debuffs, so it's pretty useful to have. Besides that, Primal Roar, of course, a nice buff to melee attack and physical resistance to all nearby troops. Doesn't imbue Rampage into them, but that's usually not a problem, especially when you've this many heroes, since you can just cold-blooded it away. Finally, we do have the Golden Tributes, and given that this is just a Death Star build, getting perfect vigor on literally all of these guys is going to be great. Alongside him, we do have a Saurus Scarvet. Not much to be said for this guy. He's coming pretty stripped down. He just has the Plaque of Dominion, granting -8 leadership. And around him, I was thinking about getting Foe Seeker, but then I realized that vigor benefit isn't really useful when I've got perfect vigor from Nakai. Besides that, King Priest of Heavens, this little guy is just here to get us some magic. Nothing too fancy on him. We got Wind Blast to clear out gobos and cheaper chaff. We got Harmonic Convergence for the self buffs, and then Curse of the Midnight Wind to debuff enemy troops, make them hit a little less consistently. Frontline composed of Saurus, not much to be said there. They're a little Chevron up because we had some cold left over. Some Chameleon Skinks out in front of that, looking to chip away at enemy skirmishers, provide us with some zoning tools, and of course the absolute beastie of a unit here, the Shredder of Lustria, which is going to be leading the charge. And of course, this is the final element of our Terror Bomb build with Dread Aversion, granting -8 leadership. So when we pop all our leadership debuffs, we've got -24 leadership and AoE. Pretty nasty stuff, plus Fear and Terror. Nothing much should hold against that. Now for my opponent, he has gone with a rather wide Greenskin build. We've got some skirmishers out here, some Force Goblin Spider Riders, as well as some Goblin Wolf Rider Archers. There's Night Goblins hiding in the trees over here, looking for a flank. Obviously, you got to be careful about these guys, because nowadays, you know, they can hit you with those Fanatics and wipe your unit out quite effectively. 2 Boar Boy Big Guns, acting as a bit of high mass support with their solid AP values and not great melee stats, but they have high mass and good amounts of HP. They can really be a problem, especially when comboed with the Black Orcs, who will beat the crap out of you in melee. They each have 50 weapon strength, so these guys are pretty nasty. Plus, they're Chevron up a good bit. So you can see Black Orcs with 40 melee attack, 29 melee defense. No joke. Front line of Savage Orcs, backed by some Gobos, probably because my opponent had money to spare. Grom the Paunch coming in on his Chariot. Not much to be said there. His kit does include the Axe of Grom, which does imbue Armor Sundering, as well as extra weapon strength. Lucky Banner in there for the damage resist and melee attack. Damage resist, of course, very valuable just to keep yourself alive. The Great Unazir, great leadership buff. It could keep a lot of these orcs in the fight and counteract my leadership bombs. And the Language of the Boys, another leadership buff, as well as Immunity Psychology. And that's going to be a big problem here, because yeah, he's going to be giving all his troops Immunity Psychology with a build that's focused on terror. But you know what? That's kind of what we expected with this build. It was kind of stupid or silly decision anyway, so I'm okay with that. We'll manage. In the meantime, Chameleon Kings here are skirmishing with the enemy backline. As we simply pile drive in, immediately going after the Giant River Troll Hag, trying to shut her down. She does have, actually, I should have mentioned, she does have a decent selection of spells here. She does have the Mither, of course, Swamp Breath, which in my opinion is a waste of money. I would not bring this most of the time. Soul Blight, great debuff. Doom and Darkness, so my opponent looking for some leadership bombs himself. Spirit Leech, and then Aspect of Dread Knight, which once again can keep your troops in the fight if you're forced to flee. An Overwhelming Odor, providing that melee attack debuff. So some nasty stuff there. That said, the Saurus Scarvet alongside Nakai is just plowing through here. Unfortunately, Grom the Paunch countercharging here with Axe of Grom, dropping me down to 65 armor. We do see more debuffs, Soul Blight going down, so down to 35 armor on the Saurus Scarvet, which is really quite bad. And with the Immunity Psychology, keeping all these guys in the fight, we're not able to sort of bomb this front line quickly. Wind Blast is going to go down here, sweep through some of the Savage Orcs, but, you know, the Saurus Scarvet's suffering. He's down to already lost about 2k HP. Back here, Chameleon Skinks engaging with the enemy skirmishing. Unfortunately, I didn't put these guys in skirmish mode, so they will be engaged in melee shortly and fall apart. But the Troll Hag finds herself in grim straits here, hit by Curse of the Midnight Wind, hit by Nakai, and some missile fire. She is forced to back the hell away and almost torn apart by the very angry dinosaurs. In the meantime, Night Goblins are springing their trap as the cavalry surges in against my poor chameleon skinks. I'm not really able to protect them very well there. Shredder of Lustria, though, breaking apart this line. Savage Orcs crumbling under its assault. And with Doom and Darkness on it, it's not really doing much. This guy still has good leadership, especially with Nakai there. He's staying minty fresh thanks to Nakai's aura, which is really nice. The Saurus here are also holding rather well. Unfortunately, these guys over here are getting overwhelmed by Grom, and Wa going off is going to seal their deal there. Boar Boys here trying to get in, and we do see some Fanatics spinning through. Unfortunately, these Loons kind of, I think, a little misaimed. They will do a lot of damage to my Saurus, but they're also doing a lot of friendly fire, especially the Boar Boys. And that's not going to be good for the Boars, who are suffering quite greatly. You can see here they're losing leadership, losing HP down to 25 and 29 there. Models there. They are going to rout. Nakai coming in with those sweeping strikes with that hammer of his, or maul or whatever it's supposed to be. And they get a paddling. These Boars are forced to flee. As the Shredder of Lustria continues plowing through, chewing through these Black Orcs as if they weren't there. Black of Dominion going down, dropping leadership. Surprisingly, the Night Goblins stick around here, which I had not anticipated. I'm not entirely sure what's keeping them in the fight, really. But Miasma of Despair is going to drop their leadership as well. You can see their leadership is starting to buckle a little bit as they come under the tender administrations of the Shredder of Lustria. And over here, the Giant River Troll Hag is caught out. My opponent didn't move her into safety fast enough, and so the Saurus Scarvet is going to tear out her. And although he is getting peppered down, the Troll Hag herself is getting torn to shreds, and we are able to rout her off. In the meantime, here in the pits, well, the Saurus are basically all gone. They've been routed off or killed, but the Croxagore Ancient, as well as the Shredder of Lustria, or rather Nakai, of course, are slugging it out, continuing a brave fight here, dragging the Boars into the muck. Surrounded, it doesn't really matter. The Shredder still hits like a truck. It might be a little poison there from some of the Spider Archers, but, you know, it's a beast. It's tearing those Orcs to shreds. And, of course, as we remove most of these key units from play, as we remove the Black Orcs from play, the Boar Boys from play, my opponent isn't going to be left with much. It's going to be a bunch of Goblins, some chaff troops. Obviously, the Black Orcs are a big problem, but besides that, it's just Grom, who's not the greatest duelist, and a bunch of Archers. Now, granted, these guys are chipping away. They are chipping down my Saurus Scarvet. My opponent doing a good job here focusing fire on units, trying to focus out the key targets. The Shredder of Lustria there getting torn apart, slowly but surely. That fire does add up. He's got 100 armor normally, but right now he's being debuffed by, I believe, Grom the Paunch, who's got the Axe of Grom going. And he's only got 15% missile resist, so he is susceptible to that sort of missile pressure. Same with the Saurus Scarvet here. He's got 95 armor and 15% missile resist, but slowly but surely he is getting whittled down. I was forced to use him to chase off Troll Hag, because I can't afford to have her come back, regen, and Spirit Leech me to death right now. I don't have any heals in this build. I was thinking about it, but I decided against it. Partially because I felt it would be a little too cheesy, but we don't have something like Bastiladon in this build, so with the Rev Crystal. So we're not be able to heal. That is a bit of a problem. We're not enough 3,300 HP on the Shredder. Fortunately, able to break off these Black Orcs. And with Curse of the Midnight Wind going off, these guys are going to buckle a bit. Nakai just running rampant. The Night Goblins can't really hold up. With Miasma of Despair on them, they actually break from proximity. Nothing's even fighting them. They rout off. As the Shredder continues, it's a rampage among the Orc ranks. This is just such an awesome unit. I absolutely love the Shredder here. Saurus, in the meantime, slugging out with the Gobos. Obviously, at this point, they're really badly mauled, but I think they can still win. They still got almost 1,000 HP, and Gobos honestly suck in melee, so it should be okay. The Grom is coming to put an end to that. In the meantime, Nakai is pursuing these Gobos, trying to remove them from play, and that does mean the Shredder loses that Vigor aura, as does the Skink Priest. In the meantime, over here, the Saurus Scarvet is diving in amongst the Spider Riders, trying to shut them down. My opponent wasn't on top of his micro, and so these guys are getting caught out, which they shouldn't have by this guy. But he's going to be able to rout them off. Cold-blooded going down because I want to keep him in the fight if at all possible. We rout off the Goblin Wolf Riders there. I see that the Boars are coming in, and so we are going to do a last hurrah here, charging into the Boar ranks, sending several of them flying, toppling them from their saddles, and shattering the first unit. More Boars coming in, trying to claim the trophy on this beast, and the Carnosaur does plow in, taking its Scarvet to an early grave, but not before having shattered both of the Boar units. So now my opponent has no high mass except Grom and I guess Trash Cap. So that's going to be a problem. Now granted, our leadership combo is effectively gone. The Saurus Scarvet is, well, I shouldn't say it's effectively gone, but it's very much reduced. We don't have that -8 leadership. Now surprisingly here, the Fanatics go spinning through the Shredder of Lustria, actually do about 300 or so HP damage, which is pretty nuts. With its long hitbox, it actually takes multiple hits there. It's pretty brutal stuff. I didn't expect that. So I was just kind of like, who cares about Fanatics? Don't need to dodge. I can just plow through that. Bit of a mistake, honestly. Losing 300 HP for nothing like that. not the biggest brain play I've ever made. That is for sure. In the meantime, the Nakai is engaging here. Unfortunately, that Vigor aura is not super big, so these guys are falling out of range. And in the meantime, my opponent is regrouping all the way here in the distance. And balance of power remains dead even though we are almost 7 minutes into the game. And that really does boil down to the fact that while I have some very potent single entities, the only remains of my army here are these Star Scarvets, who are basically dead. The rest of my opponent's build, well, he's got some Black Orcs who could be a problem. Some Savages, especially Grom, is very healthy. That's really propping up my opponent's build. He does have some width there. So here, it's not really going to be a bit of Benny Hill. I'm going to reform ranks. I'm not going to pursue the Night Goblins because I kind of figure it's not worth it, to be honest. I'm going to be wasting time, and they're just going to be dragging me out. And in the meantime, my opponent here is recovering his Vigor, which is kind of a problem. And I don't want to let him recover his Vigor, at least not on everything. Granted, most of these guys are already back to fresh, so perhaps a little bit ill-advised there. Fanatics once again go spinning through, clipping the Shredder of Lustria, doing a bit of damage there, but they are very far away from Grom, so they will rout very easily. Getting terrified almost immediately. The Shredder is taking that poking fire, but there is no armor sundering effect on it, so at least that 100 armor is holding strong. Unfortunately, as you can see, dropping to very tired as it surges away from Nakai. Nakai only has 50 speed, so he's not able to stay next to it. If I'm trying to pursue like this, we are able to tear out these guys, but I can't pursue them anywhere. They're still too quick. And so we are forced to regroup here, trying to get back in that aura. I know that if I fall out of the aura range, I'm going to lose a bunch of armor. It's going to make me much more vulnerable to the IAP damage, and it's also going to reduce my combat performance. I really do not want that. At this stage of the game, I cannot afford it. So the Death Ball marches, advancing on the Greenskins. Grom does decide to charge here, popping his buffs. He's popped the Axe of Grom, getting that extra damage output. Lucky Banner, extra melee attack, and that ward save. So he's actually pretty beefy right now, and I make a huge misplay here. I pop my Primal Roar. This imbues all your nearby units with Rampage. Now, normally this isn't a problem because you can counteract it with Cold-Blooded, but I rampaged all of my guys. I rampaged my Skink. I rampaged Nakai. That means there's no Cold-Blooded to be popped. The Shredder here is falling apart, leadership-wise. And I don't have anything to put a stop to that. Fortunately, Primal Roar does not last too long, but that could have been disastrous there. And fortunately, this is going to free me up to pop Miasma of Despair, as well as some of my other abilities. You can see going down there, dropping the Vigor by a significant amount. Drains all these guys to active, which, you know, it takes them down an entire notch, essentially. The Savage Orcs shatter almost immediately. Now, the little Orc Cav here is basically out of ammo. The Shredder remains on 1,000 HP. Grom could try to charge into that, but honestly, at this stage, it's going to be tough. There is still a decent chunk of ammo on this guy, 4 ammo. King Priest gets punted away. Keep in mind, Nakai is still in the fight. And while Nakai is not a particularly great combatant, perhaps, for his price, he is still an absolute beast. He's got 120 armor. He's able to smack around Grom there. And as the Fat Gobbo falls, it is going to be GG for the Lizardmen. And a fun little match demonstrating a ludicrous build. I honestly don't think this is a super competitive build, and it's not something I'd recommend, but I think it was a lot of fun and a bit of a cheeky strat to pull off. The Shredder of Lustria doing some immense work, 300 kills, racking up an insane amount of damage. Obviously, it's a little hard to gauge just how much some of these kills were worth. The Saurus killed a lot of Savage Orcs and Goblins, which just isn't worth as much as the Shredder, which was killing Boar Boys, Black Orcs, yes, a bunch of chaff as well, but just killing everything. Nakai was killing a lot of Boar Boys. The Star Scarvet was killing a lot of Boar Boys as well. And of course, then the damage done on Grom and the Troll Hack matters a lot. Some massive miss micro with my Chameleon Skinks. I think if I was trying to make this build more competitive or more reasonable, I would probably get a Bastiladon with a Revivification Crystal. Granted, at that point, I think you'd be turning illegal, though maybe you could squeeze in some Skinks in there just to forced to turn illegal build. It's a bit ridiculous and over the top, but you know, you could probably squeeze those in there if you really wanted to go full cheese there. But I wouldn't recommend this as a build. If my opponent had a serious firing line, this would have probably not worked as well. The fact that all of my opponent's missiles were these non-AP trash troops definitely helped in my case a lot. Grom's immunity to psychology proved absolutely pivotal in this game, or almost proved pivotal, I should say, because my opponent was able to stay in the fight way longer than I expected. His infantry crushed my Saurus, which, if he didn't have that immunity to psychology, they would have just buckled and gotten run over by the Shredder and this leadership bomb. So that was a very good choice there and proved very useful. Besides that, the Night Gobbos proved surprisingly useful. I was surprised by how well they held, and the fact that they did so much damage to the Shredder of Lustria with their Fanatics. I really didn't anticipate that. Black Orcs, of course, did some major work. Obviously, not a lot of kills, but once again, they beat down a lot on the Shredder of Lustria. They tore up the Saurus. My army wasn't that big to begin with, so it's a little hard to gauge there once again. Poor chameleon's getting kind of wrecked. For my opponent's build, my main critique here is the lack of strong missile play. You don't have good missile presence here, and you don't really have the snares to protect it. Like, you do have boar boys, but if your opponent went for a more serious build, something that was wider but still has a good monster presence, I feel like this build would probably buckle a lot more easily, because you don't have anything to really stop those monsters as they pile through your line, and just kind of swamp you. This force here isn't really super strong in the skirmish. I'd probably cut, if I was going to keep this sort of fast skirmish force, I'd probably cut the Gobos and the Wolf Rider Archers and get the Mogos Mangy Marauders in there. Not sure if my opponent has that DLC. I don't see any of those units, but regardless, I would definitely try to get Mogos Mangy Marauders. Or honestly, if you don't have the DLC, I'd probably cut the Goblin, all these guys, and try to get some Orc Air Boys in there. Because they do have 6 AP, they can still do some decent damage, and with the Armor Sundering from the Troll Hag and the Ground the Paunch, you can get some good work done against something like a Shredder or Makai or Source Carpet. But that's just my 2 cents, especially because your front line holds so well with the Black Orcs and the Boar Boys and the Savage Orcs all souped up by Grom's immunity psychology. But that's just my 2 cents there. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Well played to Gramus here, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.